Hi, Stephen from Mona Disown. Well, HID have sent me the MSI GS65 9SF. Now, this is the second in the Smackdown. Remember, they sent me 3 laptops. Last week, I reviewed the Asus Zephyrus S. Well, this time, it's the phone from MSI. Another thin and light 15.6-inch laptop. Powered by the 9758 CPU, 240Hz panel, now 3 millisecond wide viewing angle. Of course, it's 1080p. It's got the 2070 Max-Q GPU, which is an 80-watt part. It's got the Steel Series keyboard. It's got two 2-watt speakers by Dynaudio. It's running 32 gigabytes of RAM. That's 2 sticks, dual channel, Intel 9560 Wi-Fi, a 720p webcam, Bluetooth 5.0, and it's also got an 80 watt-hour battery. And it's thin. It's only 0.69 inches thin, and it's got a 230 watt power brick. And this one has a 1 terabyte PCI Express SSD in it. Now, HID have repainted this with G-Lid GC Extreme, just like the Zephyrus S. I asked them not to do liquid metal, just to sort of give it a good comparison to what you might get, perhaps retail with stock paste. And the selling price on this is $2,804. And this includes, of course, the HID, they can do a 0 dead pixel warranty, and they've inspected it to give minimal backlight bleed. So here we have the back cover, aluminium, big air vent here, some feet in the center, and you've got an insane amount of screws, 15 Phillips head screws to remove. You've got the speaker grills here. Now, the gauge of the metal is still fairly thin, so it's not super rigid. You do have a big 80 watt-hour battery here, which is good for about 5 hours of runtime for me. And you've got two 2-watt speakers, Dynaudio speakers here, and they're very good. Intel 9560 Wi-Fi card. You have a single fan for the CPU with 2 heat sinks, and 2 fans for the GPU with 2 heat sinks here. Now, under here, there's nothing else you can change. You know, you've got everything else, the SSDs, the 2 PCI Express SSD slots. In fact, one of them is PCI Express and one is PCI Express and SATA. That and the RAM slots, the 2 RAMs I've got in here, 2 DIMMs of 16 gigabytes, and they're all underneath the motherboard, so you'll need to take it out for any upgrades, which is not ideal. So the lid is black anodized aluminum with the gold MSI emblem embossed here on the lid, and it does look very nice, very classy. And you'll notice like a beveled edge, which does shine nicely off the light, sort of like golden color. So I do like that indeed. So the keyboard deck is made out of aluminium, and it's black anodized, but it does show a few smudges, unfortunately. Now, I do like the big trackpad. It's very wide, and it doesn't get in the way when I'm actually doing my typing either. It's okay. Now, the keys themselves are pretty large. You Steel Series keyboard. You don't have a separate number pad, but it's still fine. Over here on the right, you do have some controls for the speaker volumes and the display brightness, and also the key brightness on the page up and page down buttons. And on the home button, you do have a key for switching various key lighting options. They're the presets in the Steel Series app. And on the F7, you have the Dragon Sense software. F6, enable and disable the webcam. And also when you press the FN key, certain keys light up for quick access and quick visibility. Now, within the Dragon Sense software, you can actually switch between the Windows key and the FN key and swap them around if you like. And up the top here, you have a nice air vent sucking air in through the keyboard, and that's very nice. Now, I've had some requests that more laptops have their screens to go flat like that, so that's not bad at all. And the hinge itself is fairly stiff, so that is nice. So on the left hand side, separate headphone mic jacks, USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports. There's 2 here on the left. You have an Ethernet jack, air vent, and a Kensington lock. And notice the nice style hinge here, like a barrel connector with a gold embossment on it. And on the right hand side, we have the USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A third port there. We have the Thunderbolt port, which is nice, a mini display port, an HDMI, suitable for 4K at 60 Hz. Now, the barrel connector for the power is here on the right, which, to be honest, is a little bit awkward there. I'd rather it was perhaps towards the back, something like that, or on the left hand side. and you have another air vent here. Okay, so its weight, £4 4 ounces, and with a power brick, £6 3 ounces, so it's pretty lightweight. So the screen, 1080p, wide viewing angle, 240 Hz, with a nice 3 millisecond response time. It actually has decent colours too, not too bad, 94% sRGB, 66% of NTSC, and 72% of Adobe RGB, also having 72% of the P3 colour space. So it's not too bad, and you've got very nice slim bezels as well. And despite the small bezel, you know, there is the webcam up top. It's a 720p webcam. So the camera actually looks pretty decent, I'd say. Yeah, one of the best 720p webcams I've seen. And this is what it's like when it's on battery. And also when you're typing. And what it's like when you put on the max fan. Yeah, the idle fan, about 34 decibels. You can hear it even on eco mode, but it's not loud. And the auto fan under load is around about 44 decibels. And max fan, that's about 50 decibels, so it is certainly getting up there pretty loud. So let's see how hot this GS65 gets. The middle keyboard pretty good, 45 degrees, and towards the keyboard lower part there with the trackpad, that's nice and cool, of course. Let's have a look underneath. Of course, we've got an aluminum chassis, so it's going to get pretty warm. And indeed, at the very bottom here, you know, you're talking 55 degrees, so that's pretty toasty. And looking around the back, you know, most of the heat, I think, is blown out the right-hand side of the system there. You can see there. Well, like most of the systems, the latency modern test, it failed. Unfortunately, it does appear that, again, the ACPI driver is the cause for the latency. So many of you will be used to the MSI Dragon Center software. The main page, of course, shows you all of the metrics for your laptop. And then, of course, the next is the system tuner. And at the top, you have various profiles. So you have the current, of what my power profile set at, like sport and the fan speed. But you've got performance, and you have theater, meeting. So if you want something more quiet, you can certainly do that. So, of course, you can, on the shift, you can go for turbo mode, sport mode, comfort, or eco. And the fan speed, if you go for basic, you can just move it slow or fast. And it's good that you've got this various fan control options here. And advanced, you can, of course, create your fan curve yourself for the CPU and the GPU. Or if you just want to go all out, you can go for the cooler boost option. That's just the max fan there. Then what I do like for the MSI laptops is this battery option. You can have it set, you know, for mobility here. It says charge the battery to 100% all of the time. But if you do want to safeguard your laptop battery life, you can stop it charging at at 80%, or even lower should you wish. But of course, not so good for mobility in that case. Now there is an option, of course, for connecting to your mobile phone, so you can see all this information on your phone, which can be quite useful. And what I found also here useful for promoting your battery life is the battery calibration. That's very nice. I certainly recommend doing that straight away. And then, of course, you can do recovery options here. So the keyboard lighting is controlled using the SteelSeries engine. And there you have the options. It's per key RGB. I mean, you can't individually change each color of the key through like a color rainbow, but you do have various options. I've got disco set up at the moment, and of course you can click on, like, say, aqua, disco, various little patterns like that, and it is pretty nice, I must admit. Probably one of the best RGB keyboards available. So now I'm running the AIDA64 stress test. So you can see what I've got here. I've got sport mode with auto fan, and it's been running for about 12 minutes. Now this is the mother of all tests. I'm stressing basically everything here. and consequently, it does get rather warm. We're looking around about 89 degrees. It's running at, and of course it peaked at 98. As a result, the clock speed is about 2,600 megahertz. And if you look at the wattages, you will notice here there's an offset voltage of 65 millivolts. That's within the BIOS, and it's still getting rather warm, isn't it? And you can see the PL1 and PL2, 55 watts is the long-term power, and 90 watts is the short-term power, and it's of course settling in at 45 watts, but it does get on a bit of a high side there. So let's try it on max fan. All right, so now sport mode, max fan. We see that the CPU actually has boosting higher now, and see the max fan does allow the CPU to boost a little bit higher, and the temperature is a little bit cooler there, probably around about 5 degrees cooler, so that does help a little bit. And of course the wattage is much the same. Let's have a quick look at turbo boosting. All right, now with turbo mode and max fan, we see that the CPU package power has gone from 45 watts to 55 watts, and this translates into a higher clock speed, about 3,000 megahertz. So that's definitely nice. But what happens to the temperatures? Well, we're peaking here, we're running around about 94, 96 degrees Celsius, so it does get pretty warm. But still, you are getting better performance here. So to try and achieve a good balance between temperatures and fan noise, what I've done, I've maintained turbo mode and put on auto fan, installed throttle stop. Now one thing to note here, applying 125 millivolt undervolt won't have any effect here because it's still showing us a 65 millivolts. So that means what we have to do is change the PL1 value, the long-term power. So change that to 43 watts, which you can see here. And what this does, it translates into, a cooler temperature. Is running around about 87 degrees now. It's not hitting that 90 degree mark. And the clock speed itself, it's running around about 2,800. So splitting the sport mode and the turbo mode. So we're getting decent clock rate and decent temperatures at a decent fan noise. Now over to some gaming. There really wasn't much difference between sport mode and turbo mode in any of the games. Here is Overwatch, sport mode on the left using the auto fan, and turbo on the right using the max fan. The clock speeds and CPU power were the same, so the big takeaway is the reduction in temperature using the max fan. We actually see about a 5 degree reduction here. Since it's using the 80 watt 2070 Max Q, it does fall behind the Lenovo Y740, which does use the 90 watt part. But if you want to max out the frame rate and use low settings, you nearly hit the 300 FPS limit of the game. But let's see how it handles Far Cry 5, which is well known to make laptops get hot. So with Sport and Auto Fan, the CPU is now pushing about 50 watts, and this is too much for the Auto Fan to cool, as we see the CPU get into the mid-90s. And switching this to the Turbo and using the Max Fan, we see that this is still unable to cool to 50 watts. We no longer see that 5 degree reduction. Let's switch from high performance to balance mode and see if that helps. The CPU power does drop by 1 to 2 watts, but we still see CPU temperatures up to 94 degrees. Trying sport mode with max fan and the balanced power profile does help a little, but we're still getting 93 degrees and at times, and to be honest, I would rather game with a lower fan noise. In terms of frame rate, it does the same as the Y740 and actually does beat out the Dell G7. And if you switch to lower settings, you do yield a 27% gain. In Battlefield 5, we're using sport mode with the max fan and using the balanced power profile, and that is on the left with high performance on the right, and we see no difference at all. And since we cannot undervolt further using throttle stop, I decided to lower the long-term CPU power, the PL1 from 55 watts to 36 watts. So here we have footage with the power limit set to 36 watts using turbo mode and auto fan on the left, and on the right we have the sport mode with the max fan. Now naturally the CPU does downclock due to the less watts, but the frame rate remains unchanged and the CPU temperature is some 10 to 12 degrees cooler whilst using a much quieter fan mode. So yeah, this is the setting I would use for gaming. And frame rate is on par with the 90 watt 2070 Max Q in the Lenovo Y740. And if you want to max out the frame rate, low settings will bumper you up 26%. Now on the whole, I did like the laptop. I mean, the build quality, it's okay. I mean, it's all aluminium apart from the hinge cover here. It's plastic. And that's a shame compared to the competing models. That is just plastic there. So that's not so good. And the fit and finish around the edges is also not that good. Use a very thin gauge material. But I do like, you know, the gold accent around the emblem here. And also the gold beveled edges around the sides here. That's nice. Now performance wise, you know, it does perform fairly well, but it gets hot. So I do recommend that you do use liquid metal on this. For gaming, you know, to get really decent temperatures, I had to use a PL1 of 36 watts. You know, it still works fine, but, you know, it's 36 watts, isn't it? You know, so I think liquid metal is the way to go there. But other than that, the speakers are fantastic. The keyboard is good. You know, it's a SteelSeries keyboard. It's very nice. And say the speakers are fantastic. So, you know, but it is an expensive machine. Now the screen on 240 Hertz, that was great to play on. Fantastic frame rates, and you know, there's no ghosting. I really liked it, nice and smooth. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Stay tuned for the third in the series, which is the Razer 15. Subscribe so you make sure you don't miss out on that, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.